In the eastern mountains, where the wind caresses the trees as if whispering secrets to them, lived an old monk named Genshin. His temple, humble and surrounded by bamboo, was known as a sanctuary of silence, where those seeking peace could simply sit and breathe. One day, a young man named Haru arrived at the temple. His face was weary, his soul troubled, and his body ill. He had walked many paths, consulted doctors, shamans, and sages, but his ailment persisted. "Master Genshin," he said with a trembling voice, "I've heard you can heal. I beg you, please heal me." Genshin looked at him with tenderness, as if he already knew everything about him without needing to ask. He invited him to sit on the porch beside a stone bowl filled with clear water. "Drink," he said, "then stay here for 3 days. We won't speak. Just watch the garden. Listen to the sounds and breathe." Haru obeyed. For 3 days, the monk said nothing. Only silence, the murmur of the wind, and the distant song of crickets kept him company. Impatience began to gnaw at his soul. When will my healing begin? Haru thought in despair. But Genshin only smiled in silence, slowly sweeping leaves. On the morning of the 4th day, Haru could no longer contain his frustration. He approached the master and exclaimed, "I've come from afar, with pain in my body and heart. You have done nothing, only silence and more silence." Genshin set the broom aside, and for the first time he spoke. "You came seeking someone to save you, without realizing that the cure is not in me, but in you. The silence I've offered you is the first remedy." Haru frowned, incredulous. "How can silence heal?" The monk pointed to the garden. "Look at that cherry tree. A week ago its branches were dry, but I didn't demand that it blossom. I simply gave it water, sun, and space. Now look at it. It's full of flowers without effort." Haru turned his gaze and indeed saw that the tree was now bursting with delicate white flowers. "And what does that have to do with me?" he asked, still confused. "You are that tree," Genshin replied softly. "You cannot force yourself to heal. You can only create the conditions for healing to happen on its own." That night, Haru couldn't sleep. The words of the master echoed like a deep, distant sound. Create the conditions for healing. The next morning, Genshin took him to a small garden behind the temple. He handed him a shovel and said, "Today you will plant seeds. Not for me, not for the temple. For you." "Seeds? And how does that help me?" Haru questioned. "Every act you perform with attention is an invisible medicine. Your mind has been sick with haste and external searching. Now train patience." For hours, Haru worked in silence. He felt the sweat mix with the earth. The sun warmed his back, and the song of the birds was his only companion. When he finished, his body was exhausted, but there was something new, an unexpected calm. "Tomorrow we will return," Genshin said, "but not to see if they have sprouted. We will return to care for them." "And if they don't sprout?" Haru asked. "Then you will learn to care without expectation. That is another kind of healing." Days passed. Each morning, Haru went to the garden. He watered, pulled weeds, and watched the sky. And each night, instead of anxiety, he felt a gentle gratitude for having been present. The master did not intervene. He only watched from a distance, like a gardener who knows when the soil begins to turn fertile. One afternoon, while Haru meditated beneath the flowering cherry tree, a butterfly landed on his shoulder. It didn't move, simply breathed deeply. For the first time in a long while, he didn't think about his illness, his past, or his future. He was just there, and that moment, so simple, felt miraculous. When Genshin passed by, Haru opened his eyes and said, "I don't know if my body is healed, But my heart, it has become light. The master nodded with a serene smile. Healing doesn't always mean the pain disappears. It means learning to live with it without letting it govern you. Haru lowered his head, touched by a truth that didn't come from logic, but from the silence he had lived. That night, Haru sat by the fire with Genshin. The embers crackled softly, casting dancing shadows on the wooden walls. "Master," Haru said, breaking the silence with a calm voice, "why didn't you give me a remedy? A plant? A tea? A prayer?" Genshin took a twig and stirred the embers. "Because you didn't need a quick fix, but a slow transformation. If I had given you a remedy, you would have believed that the power was outside of you. And now," Haru asked, "now you know that the real remedy arises when you stop seeking it outside and begin to care for yourself from within. Healing is not a goal, it is a way of walking." Haru looked at the flames. He didn't have all the answers, but for the first time he didn't feel like he needed them. He had stopped running from his pain, and that in itself was already a relief. The fire slowly began to die down, just like the thoughts that used to torment him. As the weeks went by, Haru began to feel something different in his body. No longer was there the heaviness of illness, but a new lightness, as if something inside him had surrendered, not in defeat, but in understanding. He no longer counted the days or waited for a sign. He simply lived. One morning, as he swept the stone path, just as Genshin had, he noticed that his movements were smooth, firm, and full, not out of obligation but out of joy. Genshin approached him and said, "Do you feel it?" "The what?" Haru asked, although he already intuited the answer. "Life flowing without you forcing it. That is the oldest medicine in the world. Stop fighting against what you are and start caring for it with love." Haru smiled, not with his mouth, but with his entire being. He finally understood that his body could still ache, but he was no longer just pain. Inside him, something had sprouted, an invisible root that grew from silence, patience, and giving himself permission to heal. The day of departure arrived with the cawing of crows atop the temple. Haru, with a small backpack over his shoulder, bowed deeply to Genshin. "I have no way to thank you," he said sincerely. "You already have," the master replied. "To thank is to heal, and you've healed in the most important way, in the way you see life." Haru looked one last time at the cherry tree, now fuller than ever. He gently touched it, as if touching his own heart. Then he took a few steps and stopped. "Master, any advice for not forgetting this path?" Genshin smiled. "When you feel that you're falling ill again with fear, haste, or sadness, don't seek help immediately. Sit, breathe, listen, and ask yourself, am I taking care of myself, or am I running from myself?" Haru closed his eyes. Those words were engraved in him like sweet fire. "Thank you for teaching me to return to myself," he whispered. And without looking back, he began to walk down the stone path, knowing that he was no longer seeking the cure, because he carried it within. Years passed. Haru never returned to the temple, but his life transformed into a temple of its own. He cultivated a small garden, taught others to listen to the silence, and when someone asked for help to heal, he didn't offer herbs or recipes. He offered them a bowl of water, a quiet place, and time. Sometimes he would say, "The cure is not always to eliminate the pain, but to stop feeding it with resistance." And when someone asked where he had learned this, he would smile and reply, "From a master who never healed me, but taught me to heal myself." And so, the echo of Genshin lived in every gesture, in every seed planted, in every shared silence. Because in the end, healing is not about becoming the way you once were. Healing is about discovering who you can become when you stop running from yourself.